On August 7, 1944, at 0515 hours near Mortagne in Normandy, France, a German sentry experienced an unsettling auditory phenomenon before visual confirmation. A deep, rhythmic rumbling sound emerged that failed to match any vehicle signature documented in his recognition manual. Through the pre-dawn mist that rolled across the Norman hedgerow country, Grenadier Hans Müller of the 2nd SS Panzer Division strained his vision toward the source of the approaching noise. What materialized from the fog completely contradicted everything the Wehrmacht had taught him regarding American reconnaissance tactics. 2 Harley-Davidson motorcycles emerged, low-slung and menacing in appearance, their engines producing a distinctive rhythmic sound that would subsequently become associated with German tactical nightmares throughout the campaign. These were not ordinary motorcycles employed for standard reconnaissance duties. Mounted on specially reinforced sidecars and pointing forward like instruments of destruction were Browning M2 heavy machine guns, 50 caliber weapons capable of penetrating armor plate at distances of 800 yards. Before Müller could raise his rifle to firing position, the lead motorcycle gunner initiated fire. The acoustic signature was apocalyptic in nature, not the measured burst that German troops had learned to recognize from infantry positions, but rather a sustained roar that sent thumb-sized projectiles screaming through the morning air at velocities of 2,900 feet per second. The incoming rounds did not merely strike the German position, but obliterated it systematically. Sandbags exploded into clouds of dirt and debris. The wooden support beams disintegrated into splinters. The MG-42 machine gun that had controlled this particular crossroads for 3 consecutive days was reduced to twisted metal in less than 5 seconds of sustained fire. Then, with the same sudden appearance that characterized their arrival, the motorcycles vanished. Their speed exceeding 60 miles per hour on open roads meant they traversed the kill zone and disappeared into the next hedgerow before German forces could organize any meaningful response. The entire engagement had lasted precisely 11 seconds from initial contact to complete withdrawal. Müller, thrown backward by the blast concussion from the heavy weapons fire, slowly raised his head from the dirt where he had taken cover. His ears rang from the deafening noise of the engagement. His hands trembled as he reached for his field radio to report the incident. However, the fundamental question remained regarding what exactly to be reported. That American forces had mounted crew-served weapons on motorcycle platforms? That 2-man teams operating Harley-Davidson motorcycles were executing attacks with firepower equivalent to light armored vehicles? Across Normandy that same morning, dozens of similar reports flooded German command posts from various sectors. American motorcycle reconnaissance units equipped with 50 caliber heavy machine guns were appearing in multiple locations simultaneously, attacking at dawn, striking supply columns, ambushing patrols, and disappearing before conventional forces could engage them effectively. The Wehrmacht had encountered something for which they possessed no established tactical response. Speed and firepower combined in a platform so mobile it seemed to violate the fundamental laws of warfare itself. What German forces did not comprehend was that these devil bikes represented American industrial might, tactical innovation, and Harley-Davidson's remarkable transformation from peacetime manufacturer to arsenal of democracy. The story of this innovation begins in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where engineering ingenuity would meet military necessity. When the United States entered World War II in December 1941, the Army identified an immediate need for rugged reconnaissance vehicles capable of operating in diverse terrain conditions. The HDWLA model emerged as the solution to this requirement. The designation WLA stood for specific technical characteristics. W indicated the engine series, L designated high compression, and A denoted Army specification. The motorcycle featured a 45 cubic inch V-twin engine producing 23 horsepower, a 3-speed transmission with hand shift operation, and most importantly, from a military logistics perspective, simplicity of maintenance that allowed field repairs in minimal tools in combat conditions.
The revolutionary concept emerged in early 1942 when engineers at Aberdeen Proving Ground suggested mounting the Browning M2 50 caliber heavy machine gun directly on motorcycle sidecars. The idea initially seemed impractical, if not outright insane from an engineering standpoint. The M2 machine gun weighed 84 pounds without ammunition. It fired ammunition weighing 1.7 ounces per round. The recoil forces generated by sustained fire could flip improperly braced vehicles. Yet American ingenuity and determination prevailed over these seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Military engineers, working in close collaboration with Harley-Davidson technicians, completely redesigned the sidecar structure to accommodate the weapon system. The modifications included reinforced steel framing specifically engineered to absorb recoil forces, a custom pintle mount allowing 30 degrees of traverse for target engagement, specialized ammunition storage capable of holding 100 rounds in linked belts, and careful weight distribution calculations to maintain vehicle stability. The prototype emerged from development in June 1942, but initial test firing revealed significant problems that required resolution. Recoil forces threatened to destabilize the motorcycle at speeds above 30 miles per hour, creating an unacceptable safety risk. The breakthrough came from Lieutenant Robert Henderson, a former professional motorcycle racer from California, who brought practical racing experience to the engineering challenge. He suggested distributing recoil forces through the entire frame structure rather than attempting to absorb them solely at the mount point.
The modifications based on Henderson's recommendations proved successful. By September 1942, the motorcycle-mounted 50 caliber system could fire sustained bursts without flipping or losing stability, even at highway speeds. This achievement represented a significant engineering accomplishment that made the weapon system tactically viable. Production authorization came in November 1942. Initial orders specified just 200 units for field trials and combat evaluation. However, as combat reports arrived from North Africa and the Pacific theaters documenting the system's effectiveness, orders multiplied exponentially as commanders recognized the tactical advantages. The standard crew complement consisted of 3 men with specific responsibilities. The driver bore responsibility for vehicle operation and tactical maneuvering in combat situations. The gunner, positioned in the sidecar, operated the 50 caliber weapon system. The loader spotter rode behind the driver, feeding ammunition to the weapon system and providing rear security against threats from behind. This 3-man team, operating from a single motorcycle platform, could deliver firepower equivalent to a light armored car while moving faster than most vehicles on the battlefield. The tactical doctrine developed rapidly through combat experience and after-action analysis. Unlike German reconnaissance units that operated in large formations with armored cars and half-tracks, American motorcycle teams worked in pairs or small groups, emphasizing speed and surprise. They would approach suspected enemy positions at high speed, often 60 miles per hour or more. When contact was made with enemy forces, the lead motorcycle would brake hard while the gunner opened fire immediately. Sustained fire from the 50 caliber weapon, typically 30 to 50 rounds in a single burst, would suppress or destroy the target through overwhelming firepower. Simultaneously, the second motorcycle in the team would execute a flanking maneuver at high speed, attacking from a different angle to prevent enemy forces from establishing effective defensive positions. The combination of speed, surprise, and overwhelming firepower proved devastatingly effective against infantry positions, light vehicles, and even some lightly armored targets that lacked sufficient protection against 50 caliber penetration. However, the real innovation in tactical employment was what happened following the initial engagement. Unlike conventional forces that held ground after contact with the enemy, the motorcycle teams would immediately withdraw at maximum speed, often before enemy forces could organize a coordinated response to the attack.
The 50 caliber Browning M2 was already legendary in military circles before its adaptation to motorcycle platforms. Designed by the renowned firearms designer John Moses Browning, it fired the 50 BMG cartridge, measuring 5.45 inches in length and carrying projectiles weighing between 640 and 720 grains. At the muzzle, these rounds traveled at velocities of 2,910 feet per second, carrying 13,900 foot-pounds of energy, representing approximately 40 times the power of a standard .45 pistol round. The effective range against personnel targets exceeded 1,800 yards, providing standoff capability that kept crews outside effective small arms range. The weapon system fired different ammunition types for various tactical situations. Ball ammunition served general purposes against personnel and light structures. Armor-piercing incendiary rounds were employed against vehicles and fortified positions. Tracer ammunition assisted with targeting and provided significant psychological effect on enemy forces. The acoustic signature of the weapon was unlike any other in the theater. A deep, thunderous, rhythmic boom that could be heard for miles across the battlefield. Tracer rounds created visible streams of fire across impossible distances, especially dramatic during night operations. When mounted on a fast-moving motorcycle platform, these characteristics created terror among enemy forces. German soldiers possessed no established doctrine for defending against a weapon system arriving at highway speeds, delivering devastating fire for mere seconds, and vanishing before reinforcements could arrive to support the engaged position. The first confirmed combat employment came during the Sicily campaign in July 1943. The 45th Infantry Division's reconnaissance troop, equipped with 6 Harley-Davidson sidecar combinations mounting Browning M2 weapons, landed at Scogliti on July 10, 1943. On July 12th, Staff Sergeant Michael O'Brien encountered a German roadblock outside the town of Victoria. The position consisted of 2 MG-42 machine gun nests, a 20mm anti-aircraft gun, and approximately 20 infantry soldiers from the 15th Panzer Grenadier Division defending a critical road junction. Standard doctrine called for O'Brien to report the position and withdraw to allow heavier forces to engage. Instead, he made the tactical decision to attack. According to his detailed after-action report, he engaged the enemy roadblock at 0645 hours, approaching at maximum speed of approximately 60 miles per hour. The gunner, Corporal James Martinez, opened fire at a range of 200 yards. A sustained burst of approximately 80 rounds destroyed the left machine gun position and killed or wounded an estimated 6 enemy soldiers. O'Brien executed a hard left turn while under incoming fire from the remaining positions. A second pass from the flank, delivered 50 rounds, destroyed the 20mm anti-aircraft position. Enemy forces abandoned the roadblock position. The entire engagement lasted approximately 45 seconds. American casualties totaled 0. Enemy casualties later confirmed through battlefield examination totaled 14 Germans killed, 7 wounded, and subsequently captured. Both machine gun positions were completely destroyed, along with the anti-aircraft gun. The roadblock that should have delayed the American advance for hours had been eliminated in less than 1 minute by 3 men operating from a single motorcycle platform. Word of these tactics spread rapidly through both armies. By the time Allied forces secured Sicily in August 1943, motorcycle-mounted 50 caliber teams had compiled an impressive operational record. 47 confirmed engagements resulted in 63 German vehicles destroyed, over 200 enemy casualties inflicted, and 0 American motorcycles lost to direct enemy fire. The tactical effectiveness exceeded all initial projections.
The term Teufels motorcycles, or devil motorcycles, first appeared in a German military report from the Hermann Göring Panzer Division dated August 4, 1943. The report described an engagement near the town of Adrano, where American motorcycle units equipped with heavy automatic weapons attacked a supply convoy. The report noted that the speed and firepower of the attack created the impression of a much larger force than was actually present. The convoy abandoned vehicles and scattered, suffering significant losses. The Italian campaign's mountainous terrain initially seemed unlikely territory for motorcycle operations. German commanders believed the confined spaces and narrow roads would neutralize the American speed advantage that had proven so effective in Sicily. Their assessment proved incorrect. The restricted terrain actually multiplied the effectiveness of motorcycle-mounted .50 caliber weapons rather than reducing it. On narrow mountain roads, a single motorcycle could effectively block an entire convoy by destroying the lead vehicle and preventing others from maneuvering around the obstacle. The .50 caliber's ability to penetrate light armor meant even German half-tracks and armored cars were vulnerable in confined spaces where they couldn't maneuver to present frontal armor or escape the engagement. Lieutenant Colonel Friedrich Weber, commanding a battalion of the 26th Panzer Division, recorded his experience in a letter later captured by American forces. The letter, dated October 15, 1943, described an incident near Cassino. A German supply column consisting of 12 trucks and 3 half-tracks was ambushed in a narrow mountain defile by what appeared to be American motorcycles. Weber described the sound as terrifying, unlike anything he had experienced in previous combat. The heavy machine gun fire seemed to come from everywhere simultaneously. In reality, the attacking force consisted of perhaps 2 or 3 motorcycles, but the acoustic effect amplified by the mountains made it impossible to determine accurate numbers or positions. The column lost 4 trucks, 1 half-track, and 17 men in less than 2 minutes. The American forces disappeared before German forces could organize pursuit. The production miracle was simultaneously occurring in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. In 1941, Harley-Davidson produced 11,000 motorcycles annually for civilian and limited military markets. By 1943, military production exceeded 18,000 units annually, representing an extraordinary expansion of manufacturing capacity. Each wave of motorcycles required 1,000 individual parts manufactured to precise specifications. Military specifications added numerous components, including blackout lighting for nighttime operations, skid plates for rough terrain protection, heavy-duty tires, and weapon scabbards for carrying additional firearms. The specialized weapon sidecars demanded precision engineering capable of withstanding sustained recoil forces, custom pintle mounts machined to precise tolerances, shock absorption systems to maintain accuracy, and careful weight distribution to maintain vehicle stability at speed. At peak efficiency, final assembly required 4 hours and 12 minutes from bare frame to completed motorcycle ready for military service. Every motorcycle underwent rigorous quality control procedures, including a 10-mile test ride under various conditions and a 30-minute full-throttle engine test to identify any mechanical deficiencies. Rejection rates remained below 3%, demonstrating exceptional manufacturing quality control. By late 1943, Harley-Davidson achieved production of 90 Wave LA motorcycles daily, operating 6 days per week. 15% of total production received heavy weapon sidecars, representing approximately 80 specialized units per week. Total wartime production reached 88,337 Wave LA motorcycles for military service. Approximately 12,400 specialized heavy weapon sidecars were manufactured during the war years. The peak workforce exceeded 3,800 workers, with 42% being women. The significant female workforce would have shocked German observers who maintained ideological beliefs that women were incapable of precision manufacturing work.
Yet women workers at Harley-Davidson frequently exceeded male workers in quality metrics and productivity, particularly in precision machining operations, electrical work, and assembly processes requiring manual dexterity and meticulous attention to detail. The D-Day invasion on June 6, 1944, brought devil bikes to the European theater in substantial force. The initial assault waves included 64 motorcycle reconnaissance teams, each consisting of 2 Harley-Davidson motorcycles, one equipped with a sidecar-mounted .50 caliber weapon, one with a standard sidecar for ammunition and supplies. Their mission parameters were critical to the invasion's success: race ahead of main forces to secure key crossroads, identify German positions for following units, and establish communication lines between advancing elements.
The terrain of Normandy, with its infamous bocage country, where every field was surrounded by ancient earthen walls topped with dense vegetation, initially seemed to favor defensive operations. The narrow lanes created natural choke points where German forces could establish devastating ambush positions with minimal forces. Yet motorcycle teams discovered methods to turn the hedgerow obstacles into tactical advantages. Their small physical size allowed them to navigate lanes where larger vehicles struggled to maneuver. Their speed meant they could break contact from ambushes before German forces could coordinate effective responses. Most importantly, the .50 caliber's substantial firepower could blast through the hedgerow walls themselves. At ranges under 100 yards, sustained fire could punch through 3 feet of earth and vegetation, eliminating German positions that believed themselves protected by the terrain features. Sergeant William McCarthy of the 4th Cavalry Reconnaissance Squadron described a typical engagement that illustrated the tactical effectiveness. On June 14th, his team was conducting reconnaissance toward Saint-Lô when they received fire from a hedgerow position approximately 80 yards ahead. The gunner, Corporal Davis, delivered a 60-round burst into that hedgerow position. The .50 caliber rounds penetrated through the dirt and vegetation barrier. Fragments of the German gun and crew were observed flying into the air behind the wall. The engagement required no dismounting from the motorcycle. The crew simply pointed the weapon and fired their way through the obstacle. This capability to provide instant, overwhelming fire support made motorcycle teams invaluable to advancing infantry units. A unit pinned down by a German machine gun position no longer needed to wait for artillery support or armored vehicles. They could request the devil bikes, which could arrive within minutes and eliminate the position in seconds, allowing the advance to continue. The German response evolved from desperation as conventional countermeasures proved ineffective. Unable to match American motorcycle speed or firepower through equivalent development, Wehrmacht forces adapted anti-armor tactics for use against the motorcycle teams. Panzerfaust teams were positioned along likely routes of advance. S-mines and bouncing Betty anti-personnel mines were extensively deployed on roads and approaches. Artillery units pre-registered fire concentrations on crossroads and other likely engagement areas. Yet for every German countermeasure developed, American tactics evolved in response. Motorcycle teams began traveling in larger groups of 4 to 6 bikes, providing mutual support and overwhelming firepower at the point of contact. They increasingly operated at night when their tracer rounds became powerful psychological weapons, with streams of visible fire appearing from darkness, creating terror among German troops. The tactical adaptation continued throughout the campaign. The Battle of the Bulge, representing Hitler's desperate winter offensive launched on December 16, 1944, tested motorcycle reconnaissance units under the worst possible operational conditions. Snow, ice, freezing temperatures, and German forces attacking with strategic surprise and overwhelming local superiority created extreme challenges. Yet the devil bikes proved crucial during the chaotic early days of the offensive.
When the 106th Infantry Division found itself surrounded by rapidly advancing German forces, motorcycle teams from the 7th Armored Division raced through German lines to establish contact with the surrounded units. While they couldn't extract the surrounded troops due to the overwhelming German presence, their reconnaissance reports allowed artillery units to provide supporting fire and enabled airdrops to deliver critical supplies to the besieged American forces. At Bastogne, the famous encircled position that became a symbol of American determination, 4 motorcycle teams were trapped inside the defensive perimeter with the 101st Airborne Division. Unable to utilize their primary advantage of mobility due to the siege conditions, crews converted their bikes into static heavy weapons positions. The sidecar-mounted .50 caliber weapons were dismounted and carefully placed in defensive positions around the town's perimeter to maximize fields of fire. During the intensive German attacks on December 25th and 26th, these heavy machine guns proved invaluable to the defensive effort. Their extended range and armor-penetrating power stopped German infantry attacks that might have broken through American defensive lines. Staff Sergeant Donald Anderson, whose motorcycle team had been caught inside Bastogne when the siege began, described the defensive action in his after-action report. German forces attacked in waves, with Panzer Grenadiers supported by a few Panther tanks. While the .50 calibers couldn't stop the tanks, they proved devastatingly effective against the supporting infantry. The weapons could reach out to 800 or 900 yards and inflict massive casualties on advancing formations. Anderson observed one sustained burst hit a German squad attempting to advance across open ground, with all 8 men falling simultaneously. After several such demonstrations of firepower, German forces ceased attempting to advance across open terrain.
However, it was during the American counterattack phase that motorcycle teams truly demonstrated their operational value. As General Patton's Third Army drove north to relieve Bastogne, motorcycle reconnaissance teams raced ahead of the armored columns. Their speed advantage allowed them to identify German positions hours before the main force arrived, providing American artillery adequate time to prepare fire missions against identified targets. On January 8, 1945, as German forces retreated from the Bulge salient, motorcycle teams from multiple units coordinated the largest single-mounted operation of the campaign. 32 Harley-Davidson motorcycles, 16 equipped with sidecar-mounted .50 caliber weapons, conducted a coordinated sweep north from Bastogne toward Houffalize. They moved in 4 parallel columns covering separate roads while maintaining radio contact throughout the operation. Over a 12-hour operational period, this relatively small force totaling 96 men engaged and destroyed or scattered 17 separate German units. The comprehensive after-action reports documented impressive results. 53 vehicles destroyed, including 12 half-tracks, 3 Panzer IV tanks abandoned by their crews when the motorcycles' .50 caliber weapons penetrated their vulnerable rear armor, and approximately 320 German casualties inflicted. American losses totaled 4 motorcycles damaged by artillery fire, with all crews successfully recovered, and 11 personnel wounded, with none killed. The kill ratio of approximately 30-1 demonstrated the weapon system's devastating tactical effectiveness when properly employed. Extensive interviews conducted with Wehrmacht officers after the war revealed the profound psychological impact of the devil bikes on German forces. Oberst Heinrich Strauss, former commander of the 352nd Infantry Division, provided testimony during Allied debriefings. He stated that American motorcycle units were more feared by his men than American tanks. A tank could be heard approaching from considerable distance, allowing preparation for anti-tank defenses. The motorcycles appeared from nowhere, destroyed positions with their heavy weapons, and vanished before coordinated responses could be organized.
Strauss noted that his soldiers called them Geisterjäger, or ghost hunters, because they hunted German forces like ghosts, appearing and disappearing unpredictably. Major Klaus Dietrich, who served as intelligence officer for 5th Panzer Army, provided detailed tactical analysis. American reconnaissance motorcycles, particularly those equipped with heavy-caliber machine guns, represented a capability for which German forces had no effective counter. German motorcycle units employed light weapons for reconnaissance duties. The Americans had weaponized the motorcycle platform in ways German military doctrine had never considered. A single American motorcycle team could deliver more sustained firepower than a German infantry squad while moving 3 times faster across the battlefield. The technical sophistication involved in the weapon system exceeded what most observers realized. The Browning M2 machine gun weighed 84 pounds without ammunition or mounting hardware. The sidecar's reinforced frame and mounting system added 32 pounds of structural weight. The total additional weight on the sidecar side approximated 253 pounds, creating significant asymmetric loading that required careful engineering solutions. This asymmetric loading necessitated careful counterbalancing through multiple suspension modifications, including strengthening right-side fork springs, adjusting frame geometry to compensate for the weight distribution, and modifying transmission gearing to maintain performance. The result was a vehicle platform capable of maintaining speeds up to 65 miles per hour on good roads and 40 miles per hour cross-country, while carrying sufficient firepower to destroy light armored vehicles. The ammunition types available for the .50 caliber weapon added significant tactical versatility. M2 ball served as standard anti-personnel ammunition. M8 armor-piercing incendiary was employed against vehicles and fortified positions. M20 armor-piercing incendiary tracer combined penetration capability with visible trajectory. M1 tracer provided observation and psychological effect without armor penetration. Typical combat ammunition loads mixed these types strategically. Every 5th round, a tracer, providing visible trajectory for gunner adjustment. Every 3rd round, armor-piercing incendiary, maximizing anti-vehicle capability, with remaining rounds being ball ammunition for general purposes. The sound signature itself became a psychological weapon of considerable effectiveness. The cyclic rate of approximately 450 to 550 rounds per minute created a distinctive booming rhythm. Unlike the buzzsaw sound of German MG-42 machine guns firing at 1,200 rounds per minute, the .50 caliber produced a deep resonating boom that could be physically felt in the chest at close range. German soldiers learned to recognize this distinctive sound instantly. When that characteristic boom was heard, they understood immediately that the devil bikes had arrived in their sector. The training program for motorcycle weapons teams was intensive and demanding. At Fort Riley, Kansas, the cavalry school established a dedicated 4-week course in February 1943 covering comprehensive skills. The curriculum included motorcycle operation under various conditions, high-speed maneuvering techniques on and off-road, cross-country navigation without landmarks, weapons training on the .50 caliber, including maintenance and malfunction clearance, integrated platform operation, including firing while mounted on the moving vehicle, and tactical doctrine for reconnaissance and engagement of enemy forces. The failure rate exceeded 30% of candidates. Not every soldier could master the demanding skills required. Driving a heavily loaded motorcycle at high speeds over rough terrain while the gunner fired a weapon generating massive recoil forces demanded extraordinary coordination, nerve, and physical capability that many soldiers simply did not possess despite their motivation.